We can't order the government to spend money to have a consultant. Maybe GC Strategies is available to do it, but we...
Oh!
Mr. McCauley, you don't strike me as the kind of guy who likes throwing money away.
Call the fire department.
The Trudeau government is trying to buy Trudeau's retired buddy a $9 million condo in New York City. The Conservatives have stepped in to say, do not pass go, do not collect $200, and they are summoning officials into committee to explain themselves.
Let's take a look. So we begin with a National Post article titled, Trudeau Government Spends $9 Million on Luxury Condo for New York Consul General. Property just south of Central Park in Manhattan is in the fourth tallest building in the U.S. and replaces a residence bought in 1961.
According to numerous sources, the Liberal government has purchased a 3,600 square foot condo in the New York neighborhood known as Billionaires Row to serve as the new official residence of Tom Clark, the Consul General of Canada in New York. The property is on the 11th floor of 111 West 57th Street, just south of Central Park in Manhattan. The price was US $6.6 million, or about $9 million Canadian, though the real estate site Street Easy notes that as recently as September of 2022, the unit had been listed at more than $10 million US. The building was completed in 2021. At 84 stories and 435 meters, it is the fourth tallest building in the United States after One World Trade Center and Central Park Tower in New York and the Willis Tower in Chicago. According to an article on the luxury real estate site Mansion Global, the buyer is named as His Majesty the King in Right of Canada, represented by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a standard designation. The deed was signed by Robert McCubbing, a commissioner at the Consulate General of Canada in New York, which is part of Global Affairs Canada.
And for those wondering who the minister is, that would be Minister Melanie Joly. So, that obviously really annoyed Conservatives, as it should, and it should annoy Canadians across the country. So, at the OGO committee today, the Conservatives were meeting with a couple of witnesses and decided to introduce a motion to formally start an investigation into this purchase. It was brought forth by Kelly Block, and it started to go around the table, be amended, and such forth. Now, there was a interesting Liberal MP that was a part of the committee today. I've never seen him on OGO, and he didn't really seem to know what the heck he was doing. But he tried, and, well, let's just let committee speak for itself, shall we?
Mr. McKinnon, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a concern that I'm not clear that the committee has the power to order, somebody to produce documents. I suspect that has to go to the House, and the House has to issue that order. I wonder if someone could clarify that. Perhaps the clerk could clarify that.
Have you been to committee?
I was going to say, that's, he wasn't a jerk about it, right? He's obviously, we've not seen him in committee before. So maybe he's filling in for somebody. Maybe he doesn't regularly sit on a committee. But I feel like that's something that if you are going to sit on a committee that you may want to familiarize yourself with beforehand.
Well, yeah, but... Okay, so even if he was just elected in 2021...
They still receive training. Like, you don't, the MPs don't just get elected and then are like dumped into the House of Commons and left to fend to their own devices. Like, they are trained. They have to go through training of how to be an MP.
Yeah. But I guess my point is how do you make it through almost 4 years of government and you don't know one of the most basic functions of committee, any committee, is to get documents?
Again, as I said, it's possible that he's never been on committee before because there's more MPs than there are committees, right? And there's only a certain number that sit on each committee, et cetera, et cetera. But
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I just saw something.
what's that?
He is the chair of the Standing Committee of Public Safety and National Security.
Okay, then whatever I was just saying goes out the window. What is that?
What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
You know, I don't want to be cruel, but like, you definitely should know better in that case.
Anyway, let's...
Again, though, you know what? He wasn't a jerk about it. He did ask instead of being all like, well, you know, we can't do that. We have to go to the house and da-da-da-da-da-da. So I'll give him that.
Yeah, but that's like a chef going into another kitchen and saying, are we allowed refrigerators in here? Like...
Again, he could have been awful about it and he wasn't. So, you know, let's just leave it at that.
The committee does have the power to do that. I'm going to have the clerk repeat what I said, and you're welcome to, sir. But committees, we've ordered, as members around this table know, hundreds of thousands of pages of documents. But if you wish to confirm that for Mr. McKinnon, sir.
Yes, the committee is within the rights to request production of documents.
I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, I couldn't hardly hear you.
So yes, the committee can request the production of documents. Order.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification. In that case, I would like to propose a further sub-amendment. I believe that we should add to the documents we are requesting, we should request an independent third-party assessment of the value of the property that was purchased. And that would, I guess that language would be in, in the appropriate place in the motion, probably after the residents of the Consulate General in New York.
I get the feeling that's not an unreasonable request.
No, it is.
It is unreasonable.
It's actually impossible.
Why is that?
He's not asking for an existing piece of paper. What he's asking for is for committee to order an independent assessment of the property to determine its value. And the committee cannot do that.
Oh, the committee can't hire somebody,
No.
like an appraiser, to go in and...
Committee does not have budget.
Okay, because I was thinking that they could... It's not unreasonable to say, okay, well, we paid $9.9 million or $9 million or whatever it was. But now that it's been some time, maybe it's worth 11. So we want to know that. But that makes sense if they don't have their own budget. That, I suppose, would have to go to the House.
Right, because they would have to, and that would have to go through a order of supply to actually get funding to do that, because they would have to hire a consultant in order to do that. All they could do is basically order the production of a document that exists at like a property assessment corporation. That's basically all they could do.
Yeah, so I guess maybe before they sold it, maybe there's an appraisal document or something like that. Who knows? So they want something like that.
Yeah. But again, I'm confused because this guy's a chair. You would think that he should know some of the basic rules.
Well, to be fair, I didn't know that committee has no budget, so at least we've learned something from that.
There you go. You're also not the chair of a committee.
No, I'm not yet.
I'm going to interrupt you, Mr. McKinnon. Maybe we could just restart that, because the committee cannot order money spent for a creation of an independent. If you're looking for the existence of one, maybe you could narrow it down to that, but we can't order an independent one done.
I'm suggesting that we need to see the value of this property that we purchased, and my suggestion is that we ask for for an independent third-party assessment of the value of that property in that market.
Yeah, that's not something that we can again order the government to pay for and have done. If you're asking for, if there's an existing one, we can ask for those existing documents, but we can't order the government to spend money to have a consultant. Maybe GC Strategies is available to do it, but we
Oh,
Mr. McCauley, you don't strike me as the kind of guy who likes throwing money away.
call the fire department. Oh my
That was
God.
brilliant, though. That was amazing.
That was just,
That was brilliant.
that was napalm, just
Yeah.
like, silently dropped
You know-
all over committee.
And that's one thing I did notice about Mr. McCauley when we had the opportunity to meet him, is that he has a wicked sense of humor.
He does, and he unloaded, like, that was sprinkled all over the Liberals and the NDP and Christian Firth himself. Like, I hope he wasn't watching that. He's like, stupid Ogo. Holy.
That was good.
can't order that to be. Sorry, I had to. We can't order that to be done.
I'm not requesting, I'm not suggesting that we order them to spend money. I'm asking that there be there is very likely an assessment that was made as part of the purchase. But that's my amendment, my sub-amendment is that after the official residence of the Consul General in New York, including if available, an independent third party assessment of the value of the property in that market.
Who are you? Sorry, I'll hand it over to Mr. Bear and then Mrs. Vignola, but I want you to clarify, Mr. McKinney, who are you proposing does this independent? Because the committee can't order, even if we pass a motion, we can't order the government to perform an independent audit. We can ask if there's evaluations of it, or we can ask if there was one done. We can ask for those papers, if that's what you're asking for.
The language that I just said is that, and include, if available, an independent third-party assessment of the value of the property in that market. That does not order the government to spend any money, but that is my sub-amendment.
So just to be clear, the sub-amendment to produce these documents if it exists.
If available is what I said.
Okay, is he being obtuse, or is he this disconnected? Because if he's this disconnected, he should not be the chair of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security.
He seems very unsure of what's going on right now. Again, I don't know why this gentleman's in OGO. We've never seen him in OGO before. I've never seen him in any committee, despite the fact that I guess he's a chair of, which one was it?
The Standing Committee for Public Safety and National Security.
Okay, well, we don't watch that one. Maybe we'll have to start.
It's where a lot of the foreign interference one. I've watched it like once or twice, but dude, get with the program. And like Macaulay is saying, are you saying produce it if it exists? Well, I'm saying what I said. Like the answer is yes. So just answer yes, because Macaulay can't answer yes on behalf of your amendment. You have to be clear. That's the whole point of these motions, is they have to have absolute clarity so everybody agrees and understands what they're voting on.
I think it's important that we understand the value of the property. This is not an expense.
If there is.
Did you catch what he just slipped in there?
No.
McKinnon just said, this is not an expense.
I think he must be referring to paperwork that already exists. It would not be an expense to retrieve paperwork that already exists. We're not paying somebody to
I thought
go.
he was talking about, I thought he was referring to the building isn't an expense.
Back it up. Let's play it again.
It's important that we understand the value of the property. This is not an expense.
Okay, so he said, it's important that we understand the value of the property. This is not an expense. I definitely think he was referring to the paperwork. I don't think he was referring to the building.
I think we've identified a big problem with Mr. McKinnon is he actually doesn't speak very clearly at all. So it's hard to understand what he's referring to.
If there was an independent one done, we can ask for it if it exists. Not if it's available, if it exists. We can order it, the production of it. How's that? Are we on the same wavelength now, Mr. McKinnon? Basically, if one was done, we'll order the production of it. Correct?
I'm going to say I don't really like you rewording my motion or my amendment, but I will reword it a little bit. I'll say to add after the purchase for the official residence of the Consul General in New York, comma, and request, if available, any third-party independent assessment of the value of the property in that market. That should deal with your concerns.
Bear with us 2 seconds, Mr. McKinnon.
If I'm Macaulay, I'm having a problem with the words "if available," because that implies that if one was done, yet the document isn't available, then they can't ask for it, which is, it's problematic because there is no document that should be unavailable to a parliamentary committee.
So it's like very literal. It's not that, well, if it's available, it might not be available because it might not have been done, therefore it doesn't exist. Like, that's kind of where my mind is going.
Right.
But if they phrase it in that exact manner, then it might be like, oh yeah, one exists, but we're not going to give it to you, therefore it's not available.
Right. Like, oh yeah, I'm making it unavailable, right? So
yeah.
And I'm guessing that's why McKinnon is putting that in there like that.
Well, and that just kind of reminds us all that there's a difference between like colloquial speech, the way we all talk to each other, and then parliamentary language or legal language.
Yeah, legal language has to be extremely precise in order to, be effective, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to try to find a loophole or tear it apart. That's the problem, right? So, and we've kind of discussed some of the shenanigans that have gone on committee that have surrounded motions and things like that. So anyway, they were able to deal with McKinnon's amendment. Macaulay took actually a lot of time to coach it through, and get that done. And then they moved on to Mr. Barrett and Mr. Brock to speak about the motion and more particular the topic at hand. So we just as with the video that we posted earlier today, we took out some of the good parts.
Mr. Barrett, then Mr. Brock.
Well, I fundamentally disagree with Mr. McKinnon that this is not an expense. His words were that this $9 million is not an expense, that $9 million in a cost of living crisis, in a housing crisis in our country, $9 million on a condo for Justin Trudeau's buddy Tom Clark on Billionaire Row, that $9 million is not an expense. Well, was it a gift? Because if it, where did the how did that purchase come to pass? I mean, just absolute fantasy along the lines of budgets balancing themselves. Of course, $9 million is an expense. And it was taken out of Canadians' pockets. It was taxed off of their paychecks.
Do you know what Mr. Barrett does that I absolutely love? Is he looks dead in the camera because he's speaking to Canadians. He's not speaking to witnesses.
Yep, and he's either picked that up from Pierre or Pierre's picked that up from him, but they both do it a lot now.
And they do it well.
So, of course, $9 million is an expense. And I'm pleased that the chair did heavily coach the amendment, because in its current form, it's supportable, though it wasn't in its original form. But we want all of the information about this $9 million expense that taxpayers are footing for the luxury condo for Justin Trudeau's buddy Tom Clark, living on, quote, Billionaire Row in New York City. And I hope Mr. Clark enjoys it until the day after the next election.
Shots
Wow.
fired.
Good one.
Shots fired.
The day after the next election.
Because we are going to sell that and put you up in a crap ass apartment downtown New York. No, so in all seriousness, the Consular General down in the U.S., they're expected to entertain, guests and things like that, dignitaries, that sort of thing. And that's part of what their current residence, serves to function as. Now, if they're saying, well, we haven't renovated it since, 1982, okay. But here's my next question. Is now the right time to be addressing this?
Well, and then the other thing, 3,600 square feet, that's huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
I don't know anybody who lives in a house that size. Could you imagine having a condo that size?
Right.
And being like, oh, well, I have to entertain dignitaries. Like, what are you doing? Putting them up for the night? Putting 50 of them up for the night? Like, what is going on?
Yeah. What's interesting is this condo has more bathrooms than it has bedrooms, but we'll get back to that.
The concern that I have, if anyone, I'm sure we've all dabbled in real estate in our personal lives, if not professional lives. There's always a cost attached to any assessment of fair market value. No, I understand that, Chair. I just want to complete my thoughts. There's always a cost to obtain an assessment. So in the ordinary course of events, the Liberal government, an agent of the Liberal government, would have negotiated the purchase of this extravagant, ultra-luxury penthouse on Billionaires Row for $9 million. There may or may not be an assessment that was made privy to the agent who purchased the property on behalf of the Government of Canada. But unless it's in the government's possession, even if one exists, the author of that assessment, unless they are a very generous individual or company, is highly unlikely to release it to the government to comply with this order without a cost. So unless the Liberal Party of Canada, which is in a position to pony up for a potential expenditure to comply with this particular order of committee, my concerns are it should not fall to the taxpayer.
You know what? That's a good point. You guys purchased this property. You guys got us into this mess. You guys can pay for the release of the information as to how much it's valued at. Don't put it on the taxpayers. You guys put $9 million on the taxpayers already. Don't put any more.
Well, and I imagine that, who knows how much it's going to cost? Is it going to cost $100? Maybe. I don't know.
Is it going to cost $1,000? Who knows? Like it could be some huge number.
But the point is it doesn't matter because it's taxpayer money. Full stop. So the good news is they navigated this motion from the Conservatives and it received support. Surprise, surprise.
That is a surprise. I suppose if it was the NDP, though, they couldn't really say that, oh, no, we don't care about it because
they're supposed to care about, extravagant, unneeded money.
Right. They hate the rich, right?
So here's the second article. Canada's Consul General, other officials called on to explain purchase of $9 million Manhattan condo.
Ottawa. MPs are summoning top government officials and Canada's Consul General in New York to explain the decision by Global Affairs Canada to buy a $9 million luxury condo on Manhattan's Billionaires Row. MPs of all political stripes on the Commons Government Operations Committee Wednesday agreed to summon Tom Clark as well as top diplomatic procurement and Treasury Board Secretariat, or TBS, officials to justify the purchase of the luxury condo as the new official residence for Canada's Consul General in the city. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly will also be required to testify if the committee deems it necessary during 3 meetings in late August. The new condo is in Steinway Tower, the world's thinnest skyscraper, located just south of Central Park on a stretch known colloquially as quote-unquote Billionaires Row, for the price and luxury of real estate there. A listing for the new unit shows it has 3 bedrooms and 4.5 bathrooms, as well as a wet bar, a powder room finished in jewel onyx, and as Canadian officials ramp up their entreaties ahead of the upcoming U.S. election, plenty of space for entertaining. The GAC has said that the new purchase was required because the existing residence, located at 550 Park Avenue, hasn't been refurbished since 1982, and bringing it back to department standards would cost too much. Department standards. I can't imagine, or maybe I can with this government, but that bringing a residence to department standards would cost more than $9 million.
Well, don't you know that the department standards have elevated past Park Avenue? Park Avenue, I guess, is the slums of the rich people now.
Sounds like it.
You got to go to 111, West 57th Street in order to, get to the new Park Avenue. But, that'd be kind of hard to say on a monopoly board. But, well, I guess all you'd put there is Steinway Tower. So,
but this is unbelievable. Canadians are living in tents, and they just purchased a $9 million condominium for the consul.
For one guy.
Well, because he has to entertain.
And this is it.
This is gross.
Even if you can say, yeah, you know what, the 1982, renovation is out of date of this building that was originally purchased in 1961. Sure, you can agree on that. You can agree that maybe they need a new resident. Sure, you can agree on that. But what you can't agree on is we should buy that right now and we should purchase it for $9 million. During a housing crisis in Canada, during an affordability crisis in Canada.
Yeah, and it's got, what did it say? Jeweled onyx bathrooms?
Yeah.
Or sorry, a powder room. It's not a bathroom, it's a powder room. Excuse me.
Well, who knows what the other, more extravagant bathrooms have, right?
Probably gold all over the showers, or
marble toilets or something.
Who
I
knows?
don't know.
My goodness.
But this is the tone deafness of this government. And I am glad that everyone said, you know what, bring him in. So you better believe we're going to be live streaming those.
Well, and the interesting thing that the article said, I'm going to read this sentence again. It says, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly will also be required to testify if the committee deems it necessary during 3 meetings in late August. You cannot require a minister to testify. You can ask nicely that they come to committee, but you cannot subpoena them. You cannot require them to come.
Yeah, so what the author of this article probably took from what happened at committee is when the Conservatives probably said in the motion, we're going to need the minister there. They probably interpreted that as, well, they're going to be required to come. Well,
right.
You can require them all you want. They don't have to show up.
Right. Unfortunately, you cannot force a minister to come and testify in committee. That's kind of one of the perks of being a minister. You get immunity from testifying in committee unless you want to go.
So anyway, this is gross, but thank goodness that they're still going to be working over the summer to get to the bottom of this thing. So as soon as we start to have some dates for the live streams, look out, folks, because I think this is going to be one spicy investigation.
Yeah, I'm very happy that Ogo is going to be sitting over the summer because, as they say, it's the only committee that matters.